Here, and I appreciate so much that you folks are still here with me, or with us. And as you remember, when we left you, we were speaking with Bill Morris, who is still with us, right, Bill? Yep.
Yeah, I'm still here.
And Rand Brenner, who is someone who I have not met yet. So we can start off by having, usually I would have Rand just give a hello and here's what I do and who I am and whatever. But since we've got Bill here, and Bill teaches UCI, as we said before, in business strategy and entrepreneurship, maybe Bill can introduce Rand and both that kind of thing. Whatever you guys think.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Rand is a good friend. Rand has been just a prince of a guy. He comes in. I ask him every semester to kind of come in and talk to my kids about licensing, because obviously at the business school it's a course that isn't really offered in the university, but right. It is so important to understand the workings of licensing in the business world. So I try to give my kids the real world experience, and Rand is the guy. I call him my licensing guru, and he's got a great presentation. I don't know if you've got it with you today, Rand, or not. But it's very succinct, it's very, very good, and it's, it's spot on. So it can help a lot of businesses. And, if anybody out there is in the business world that needs to be guided in the world of licensing, Rand is your guy.
Well, thanks.
And I know
you can buy me lunch later, Rand.
And I do know, because in my past life, I was, I had my mortgage licenses in like 43 states. And you know what? That wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And I needed a lot of help to do that. And someone who did not understand licensing could not have done it, period. I don't care. You can't be on your own and do it like that and get it done. So now, Rand, did you want to
Sure, I can
give that talk, or I mean, I'd love to hear it, but I don't want you to talk about something you don't want to talk about.
I think, as we pointed out, a discussion is probably a good way to go here, and I think touching on the points, and let me just give a little bit more meat around my introduction. The licensing we're talking about here is intellectual property. My specialty is working with people who have intellectual property and want to find ways to basically make money with it. That's the licensing process. Often not well understood by many people, yet it's big business. And anybody that's got intellectual property, patents, trademarks, copyrights, and everybody has some form of IP, can use licensing to partner up. Mm-hmm. So I equate it, I'm kind of like a real estate broker for intellectual property. It operates a little bit different, but very similar. And I think that, what happens is for many people today, especially with innovation, patents, trademarks, copyrights, they get these intellectual properties and then they're trying to figure out what to do with them. And one of the things that generally happens is they try to start a business, which is the most conventional way of doing it. It's the way we're all taught in schools and universities and things like that. And one area that's never taught, and Bill has been so gracious to invite me in to talk to the students about, is the intellectual property and licensing and what it is and how it works, because the world is built on basically intellectual property. And it needs and for anybody listening, if you've got intellectual property, it offers you a route to the market that might be easier than trying to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's always, I don't care who you are, it's always better to have help. It's always better to do it with other people, or where you can exchange some of that intellectual property with other people and get some of their intellectual property. And both of you can do as much as you can, probably more than you could by yourself, right?
Yeah, well, that's a big part of it. I often like to use the analogy. Think of it that there's companies out there that have been operating for years and years, and so they're pretty good at what they're doing, whether it's selling products, services, technologies. And if you're a newcomer coming in and you've got this new intellectual property, whether it's an invention, a widget, whatever it is, oftentimes you have to try to figure out how to get into the market and set up sales and operations and everything else. But if you use licensing, basically you can partner up with one of these companies that's already in the market, and you're basically using their resources. They, in return for them getting to use your intellectual property, they'll pay you royalties, but they've got already the sales teams in place, distribution, manufacturing, marketing, and it can be a very successful model. And in fact, it's used by many of the world's largest corporations around the world, have licensing as a big part of their revenue streams.
Yeah.
You can name just about any industry and you'll find that licensing is a big part of it.
Yeah, maybe what's really kind of cool, we could start with how my students absolutely love when Rand, starts to give a little bit about his background with regard to Batman, and he's been around, for a while. So maybe you can start with that, Rand, on how you got started.
Yeah, we missed some of that, like your 50,000 sit-ups or whatever it was. Or 10,000. We missed that on you. We'll have to catch up with that part next time around, which I hope.
Yeah, that's not important. That's not important.
Yeah, I think, and Bill raised a good point. Often I'm asked the question of how did I get into this business? And like many others, it was by accident. But I started in the entertainment business back in the 80s at a time when licensing wasn't a big part of their business. I had joined Warner Brothers, and at that time they had the first Batman movie. I know I'm dating myself here, but
and now, are we talking? We're talking about the Tim Burton,
right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
One.
My favorite. Yeah. Really. I know Christopher Nolan is a great director. I think he got a little off base there on Tenet, but that's another story. But and I think he did a great job with those Batman ones. But for me, a little bit of more humor and the weirdness of Tim Burton, I think, really that was the real Batman to me.
Well, yeah, and that was, of course they had the star power of Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton, folks like that. And so in that case, when I was brought on board, it was a time when licensing, as I said, wasn't a big business. So our job was to go out and find literally any company that was willing to pay some money to use these characters, because they hadn't been seen in over 30 years. So
That's true.
Everybody hadn't seen Batman since the 60s, and here we were coming up on the 90s, and everybody was feeling like maybe this thing isn't going to work. And so it was one of those crazy times where you're kind of thrown into the fire, no training, and we went out and put together all sorts of crazy deals. And of course, when the movie opened, I like to say it went like a bat out of hell, and it became a big hit. And that was probably a point in which many of the studios sat up, took notice, and said, "Wait a minute, maybe there's some big money to be made on the back end of these things." And of course, there is, as we can see now. And that was really how I got my start. So I had an opportunity not only work at Warner Brothers, but also spend some time at Saban Entertainment when they had the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and did a lot of licensing deals in a lot of consumer product categories: toys, t-shirts, hats, shorts, you name it, all the crazy stuff that goes around. And that's where I really got my feet wet and really got to know the business. And then I, after doing that for about a decade, jumped over and started my own business, as I figured, well, all these people are making a lot of money getting the licenses. Maybe I should be brokering my own deals. So I set up my own company, and my consulting business does focus on licensing, working with companies that have intellectual property, and most often managing the licensing out campaign for them.
Yeah, that's you see, when I first think of licensing, I think, well, let's see, I've been getting my real estate license for 427 years. My lending license, that's like every year now. But that's what a lot of people just think of licensing as. Now, I've heard of licensing when it comes to these other things you're talking about, but that was not what came to mind at all when I knew we were going to be talking about licensing. And what you're talking about is so important and universal and everywhere in all business. Well, I was going to say business, but in all relationships, really. Whether it's yeah, it could even be Superman, which I never liked as well as Batman, but
and they both made money. I mean, now, today, I don't, for many people listening, you probably are not even aware that everything they eat, touch, wear, drive in, listen to, just even through this station, it's all intellectual property, and it's all brought together through licensing deals. I mean, cell phones today, smartphones that you talk on, those aren't individually created by each manufacturer. They actually have to go out and get licenses for the components, the screens, the internal workings, the apps, things like that, because there's so many pieces to it and they cross over. And this is where licensing has become such a big part of the world. And then, of course, today, when you look at what's happening in healthcare, it's all about licensing the different medical devices, drugs, even the vaccines that are coming out are all built around partnerships that are licensed at some level. And it's something that for anybody listening who maybe is in business in a startup and is wondering, what are the options to get into the market today? You need to take a serious look at your intellectual property and using licensing as a business strategy go-to. And I talk about this in Bill's class. I say, look, there's more than one way to get into the market. It doesn't have to be 100% direct. When you add licensing in, because you can do it at the same time, now you have 2 revenue streams instead of 1. So let's say you get blocked, you're trying to raise money, you don't have enough money to get your product in the market. If you start also with licensing, then you can continue on. And at some point, if licensing develops a deal, you've got revenue. And if you start selling in the markets, you've got revenue. So it really gives you a lot more opportunity in a single revenue stream.
I mean, that's so important. It's just mind-boggling when you stop and think about it, because everything is so interconnected.
Oh, it is. That's a good point.
And, we're not single cell animals anymore. I spent some time in the hospital here lately, so that's what's making me think of the health things and how complicated our systems are inside of us. It's the same thing in the business world. It's the same thing in every world. And to get all of those parts to mesh together, that takes a real expertise, like someone like yourself.
Well, it does. And I think that one of the things that people need to understand about intellectual property is there's so much more that can be done with it. It's the largest asset class in the world. There's more intellectual property than anything in the world, yet 60-70% of it sits unused. And a lot of the reason that it does is because businesses and people don't understand what to do with it. You find intellectual property everywhere, not only big corporations, but inside government agencies, research labs, universities. There's so much intellectual property that's being developed. And one of the biggest challenges is putting these partnerships together, because unlike real estate, houses and condos that you can find on a multiple listing services, there is no multiple listing service for intellectual property. So your challenge is how do you find your partners? And that's the challenging part, which is where most of my clients, this is why they retain me, because they need somebody to help them not only find the clients, but do the things that you need to do to create the partnerships.
But also, I take it that I know if I were one of your clients, I probably would be telling myself, I don't really know all the intellectual properties that will help me. I need someone like yourself with the experience to show me all the different avenues I could be taking.
And that's a great point. Many times when I speak with clients and we start talking, the thought is often toward, well, I've created a patent around this product, or I have a brand around this trademark. But as we discuss it more and I start to ask them questions, we begin to open up and realize it's more than just a single product, service, or technology. I'll give you a great example is what I work with a lot is in medical devices. Most companies that create medical devices, especially if they collect data or they're connected, they think they have a device that plugs in somewhere and somebody uses it to monitor. But if we go deeper into it, what that device, it's not about the device, it's about the data that they collect from the device. That's the value. Okay, and that back-end data is what's known as a trade secret. That's the real value of what their device is. And so in many cases, they're focused on trying to sell a product rather than understanding the value you're getting is in collecting data and what can you do with that data? Who would be interested in that data? What partnerships can you create as a result of that? That's just one example.
That's a full-time job you just said there.
Well, it can be. And it doesn't stop there, by the way. Manufacturing processes, research and development processes, maybe you're a marketing expert, a business development expert, a leadership expert, whatever the case is, that's all intellectual property. And if it works for you, it can work for somebody else. And this is what you can do with it, is you can take it out and let others use what you've created and you know works. So there's many avenues that you can approach, and it's a big subject. I mean, the challenge is, of course, most information is hard to get. It's mostly focused on the legal side and the academic side, not on the practical side. As I share in Bill's class with his kids in there, I try to, share the side of saying, look, this is a money-making process. Licensing is like marketing, but you just have to understand what steps you have to take to make it happen.
Forgive me. I'm recovering from some action, but it is like marketing, isn't it? And without you having said it, I may have gotten there myself because of the things you're bringing out, but it is just like marketing.
Well, it's a form of marketing. It's basically a form of marketing, a different strategy. It's a different marketing strategy is what it is. Mm-hmm. And it can be used as part of your direct go-to-market, or it can be used as your sole go-to-market. Mm-hmm. And you have many companies today that look at licensing as a better way to make money. Like, for example, Nokia doesn't make their phones anymore. They stepped out of the production business and they license it out because they realize that it's their patents, their innovation, that's far more valuable, and they make a lot of money by licensing it out. And then if you look at some of these other big technology, look at Polaroid and Kodak, both of who went bankrupt, yet they've been reinvented as innovation companies because the value is in their technology. And so now they make tens of millions, in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars, licensing out their technology. Wow. And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
Boy, it sure is. Wow.
And I know that even just lucky enough we are to have Rand on this call. There's probably only about 5 minutes left, but I would love to make sure that people understand that they can get Rand's free newsletter. And also, he's got a podcast and he teaches this stuff. So, is there a way, Rand, that you can kind of?
Absolutely. I put together two websites. One is my consulting side, and you can find that at licensingconsultinggroup.com. That's licensingconsultinggroup.com. And there's free reports, blog posts, research, things like that people can access. And then my second website is licensingforprofits.com. That's the number 4, licensingforprofits.com. And if you want to learn the how-to, the mechanics, step 1, step 2, step 3, what is an exclusive, what's a non-exclusive, how do I present my IP, you can get all of that stuff at licensingforprofits.com. As Bill said, lots of free newsletters, e-courses, webinars, seminars, and then if you wish, you can take some of the training courses to learn how to do it. And it's all there, so anybody listening or watching, feel free to visit those websites and sign up. I'd love to have you as a subscriber and share this great information with you.
And do you have a phone number you may want to share or may not want to share, or rather to go to the...
Yeah, I mean, the website's the easiest, but you can always contact me at 646-395-9572. And you can send me an email if you like at Rand, that's R-A-N-D, at licensingforprofits.com. That's licensing, the number 4, profits.com. Wow. And be happy to answer your questions and set up a short consulting call and find out what type of IP you have and where you can go with licensing.
Yeah, I mean, wow. It's like opening up a whole new avenue for business, which I know it's there. I always know it was there. I mean, but to be able to actually open the door and point to things is what you've been doing, and that's been very, very valuable, I think. Very valuable. Now, let's see, Sean, when did you want to take a break? Okay, well, we got 3 minutes to the bottom of the hour, and I'd like to invite both of you folks. Now, I know that, Bill, you've been on here for a while, so you may want to leave. I don't know.
He's trying to get rid of me.
But I'd much rather you stayed. But I mean, I don't want you to think every time you come on the show, you got to be here an hour or an hour and a half. That's not the case. So
I understand.
But I really enjoyed that. And then I know Rand said you could stay a little while longer, and that would be great too if you wanted to. We could talk about licensing for the Joker too as we get further. But I don't know what you thought of that last film, but yeah, I think what's his name, Phoenix, whatever I think he's a great actor, but that film just not for me. But thank you so much. I don't know. But so, I don't know. We'll see when we come back here in another minute who still is here and who still ain't here. But Rand, thank you so much for this much so far. It's really opened my eyes. It's
My
been
pleasure.
something in the back of my mind that I kind of knew about, but I was never able to put it into words like you did.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure everybody else does also. So I think we're probably ready for a break, and we'll be back very, very soon. And to both of you gentlemen, one more time, and Bill, it's great to see you again. And Rand, it was really great to meet you, and I hope that we get to meet each other in person before too long.
I look forward to it.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Me too.
Thanks.
Thanks again, and thanks for all the listeners, and we'll talk to you when we come back. Bye-bye.